Modern Christianity. Do you really want to be associated with what modern Christians believe? They place themselves above other human beings. They call other human beings names. They make videos describing them as impotent fools, simply because they don't believe as they do. And what they believe in is that there is a place after death that even good people go. Christopher L. stated that in a video along with Yoka, that there are plenty of good people either in hell or going to hell. Good people. And while these people have had multiple marriages and have confessed to multitudes of sins, good people who have had faithful marriages, one, by the way, who've not committed this multitude of sins, they're only good for torment and for eternity. That is what Christians believe. You know, early believers looked at Gehenna or Hades or Sheol as symbolic of a punishment. Not in the afterlife, but of a punishment, symbolic of that punishment. When Jesus speaks of what Christians call hell, he usually talks of destruction. When he talks about the path is narrow that leads to eternal life, he said wide is the one that leads to destruction. The wages of sin is death. Not the wages of sin is eternal torture in flames. But early on, Christians believed that this was symbolic of what would happen to a sinner. When Jesus walked the earth, sinners were actually thrown into Gehenna. Their bodies were burnt. This was symbolic of the eternal destruction that would come upon those sinners. The Sanhedrin was the council. When you were brought before the council, you could be subject to the fires of Gehenna, not the fires of an eternal burning in the afterlife. Christians today believe a pagan belief, and they call it Christianity. They've hijacked Christianity. It went from this symbolic belief to a literal belief. And they had to back it up with literal supernatural beings that were devils and demons. And in order to make them immortal, they had to say it was angels that sinned in heaven and were cast out. Angels, they blaspheme angels to back up their belief systems. It's enough to make a good man, an honest man, reject Christianity. And as soon as they do that, you pounce on them, condemning them all the more to your pagan hell. And then you say, you have the Holy Spirit. You have an eternal life in paradise. I think you're sadly mistaken. Sister Sunshine, Yoka, Christopher L., The Edge, Gear Up, Venom Fang. The list goes on and on and on. You're evil people condemning good people to an eternal hell. You overlook scriptures in the Bible that say the wages of sin is death. There's a couple of scriptures in the Old Testament that you feed off of to say it proves hell was taught in the Old Testament. Those scriptures talk about the last days, what would become of those people in the last days. Jesus said the last days were here when he was here. It was at the door. It was at hand. It was the final hour. And destruction came upon those people. And they looked upon the corpses of those people. They were dead. They ceased to exist because of their foolish pagan beliefs. Their murderous, evil, adulterous generation ended. You're doing the same thing that brought judgment on those people. And if God is real, judgment will come upon you as swiftly as it did then. And you will cease to exist. There'll be no eternal life for you, as the Soup Nazi would say. No soup for you. Peace.